Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's The Jewels of the Qur'an, Jawahir al-Quran. And at the end of the last session, the introduction really, and we are still continuing with the introduction. Imam Al-Ghazali's introduction about the content of Jawahir al-Quran. He did say that he included what he called Kitab al-Arba'in. Of course it is, and that it could be written, meaning copied, from either it was separately as independent book, Kitab al-Arba'in fi Usul al-Din. And I said that it's important to compare it to Ihya Ulum al-Din, not in details, but really as a structure, because that will be a very big task, really. But I wanted people to know in general. And to do this, you need to have both Jawahir al-Quran, the jewels of the Quran, and Ihya Ulum al-Din, the content really of Ihya Ulum al-Din, so that we could compare. First of all, both have 40 subjects. Imam Ghazali says 10 usul in each quarter, and that's exactly what we have in Ihya Ulum al-Din. Ihya Ulum al-Din, we have Ruba al-Ibadat, and we have Ruba al-Adat, and we have Ruba al-Muhalikat, and we have Ruba al-Munjiyat. In the Al-Arba'in fi Usul al-Din, the 40 fundamentals in religion, the first 10 rather than Ruba al-Ibadat will be the second section, second quarter of the 40 fundamentals, Al-Arba'in fi Usul al-Din, and not the first quarter as in Ruba al-Ibadat and Ihya Ulum al-Din. First of all, these are pushed back to number 2, and not including the book of knowledge. That's so we have now 9. Number 2, Kitab Qawaid al-Aqaid, so the second chapter of Ihya Ulum al-Din. Imam Ghazali specifies 10 topics from that treatise on Islamic creed. And that's the first quarter. Asun fi Dhat Allah Ta'ala, that's the first one, is the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sanctifying the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the Qudra, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 4 is on the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number 5, will, divine will. Number 6, hearing and seeing. And number 7 on divine speech. Number 8 on divine actions. And number 9 on the day of judgment. And number 10 on prophecy. So now the next 8 will be pushed back practically. Not all of them. We have we don't have Tahara, so that's omitted. Not that is not part of the religion, but I'm talking about the usul. That would be including of course, it goes without saying. In the first chapter, in the second quarter, on prayer, أصل في الصلاة. Number 2, zakah. Number 3, psalm. So we talk about the obligatory prayers. We talk about the almsgiving. We talk about fasting in the month of Ramadan. Number 4, on Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. Number 5, on reciting the Qur'an, which is, it follows immediately in the original in Ihya al-Ulumuddin. It is Kitab Adab Tilawat al-Quran. Number 6, on remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's still corresponding to Kitab al-Adhkar. Now 7, 8, 9 and 10, they are not there in the first quarter of Ihya al-Ulumuddin, and they are أصل في طلب الحلال, on seeking the lawful for living, for consumption, for whatever, and أصل في حسن الخلق, on good manners. And here we talk about if we are going to use the word, seeking the halal, and that will be number 4 in the second quarter of إحياء علوم الدين. الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر, and that's number 9 in the second quarter. وأصل في اتباع السنة, and one way or the other it could correspond to number 10 because it talks about كتاب أدب المعيش وأخلاق النبوة. The third part of the 40 in the fundamentals, 40 fundamentals of religion, it's on it does correspond to certain parts that were not mentioned from the second part of Ihya Ulumuddin. As I said, you need to have both contents of both books right in front of you. And the third section of the 40 fundamentals of religion, the behavior, the traits, characteristics that one should get rid of, bad mannerism, disdain, on while we that would could respond, the first one on gluttony, أصل في شره الطعام, and that one way or the other corresponds to number 3, at least it's one part, because we talk about كتاب كسر الشهوتين, the 2 lusts, and either we talk about food or we talk about intimate relations, but here what is the problematic part is to allow these to control one and to go into extremes. Number 2 is on the pains of the tongue, so it corresponds to number 4 in the third quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. الغضب والحسد, they show up together in Ihya Ulumuddin, and of course الحقد, which is not listed here, but these are 3 and 4. أصل في الغضب, أصل في الحسد. Again, it's only one title, and that's number 4 in the third quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. أصل في حب المال, it does correspond to book 7 of Ihya Ulumuddin of the third quarter. أصل في حب الجاه, that's the next title, حب الجاه والرياء, book 8 of the third quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. أصل في حب الدنيا, it does not show up like it's number 6, so going back a little bit. Now al-kibr and al-ujb here in the 40 fundamentals of religion, which is part of the Jews of the Qur'an, but Imam Ghazali said that it is, could be considered separate, and we will simply mention it, and later on we will simply might not really deal with that because it is considered as such. So kibr and ujb, they are mentioned together. Book 9 of the third quarter, and number 10 is Riya, and that's number 8. So 10 and 6 of the books of the book of the 40 fundamentals of religion, book 6 and 10, they are together in book 8 of the third quarter. The fourth quarter of the praiseworthy manners, and here it follows to a certain degree, of course, the fourth quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. It begins with Tawbah in both books, and As-Sabr wa Shukr, that's one book. That's book 2 of the fourth quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. Here we have them as 4 and 5 in the 40 fundamentals of religion. And we have Zuhd as number 3, which is number 4 in Ihya Ulumuddin. Al-Ikhlas was-Sidq, and that's number 7. Here number 6 in the 40 fundamentals of religion. Number 7 on Tawakkul, and that's number 5 of the fourth quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. وأصل في المحبة, and that's book 6 of the fourth quarter of Ihya Ulumuddin. And of course, ultimately, we have 9 and 10. We have Rida bil Qada, and we have the book of death, which really it's the very last. It's number 40 in both books, and the place of this book at the very end makes sense, because really this life, of course, ends with death, and it's about its reality and divine punishment and the fire, hellfire. So this is kind of comparison between both books, and now we're going to just simply return to the Jews of the Quran. So Imam Al-Ghazali says, rahimahullah, on this first section, on now he deals with the 19 chapters that we have mentioned in the last session, and here he's going to deal with them in details. The first chapter covers the Quran is like an ocean which covers various types of jewels and valuables. في القرآن الكريم هو البحر المحيط وينطوي على أصناف الجواهر والنفائس. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. After mentioning the name of God, again we spoke about the importance of hamd, that any important deed that is not begun with Alhamdulillah, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is lacking. It's abtar, aqta, it's كل كلام لا يبدأ فيه بالحمد فهو أجزم. And the hadith is Hasan, inshallah. So after mentioning the name of God, I glorify Him with His praise, which should constitute the beginning of every book. May His blessings be upon His messengers, rather. And this is not the first time that Imam Ghazali mentions the messengers in this prayer in the plural, meaning that the sending these prayers, blessings to all the previous prophets, all his messengers. And this reflects Islamic creed that we believe in all the prophets. We have 25 names in the Quran, and also we have references to other prophets. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, addressing the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there were messengers that he mentioned their stories, and there are messages that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not mention their stories. A major difference would be, first of all, that sometimes the people of the book, when they talk about the patriarchs such as Ibrahim alayhi salam, and his children and grandchildren and his offspring, they call them the patriarchs, as if they are not messengers or prophets. That's one difference. Second difference, we would differ with the Christians about the nature of Jesus Christ, peace upon him. That's very important. In Islam, as you will know, he is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Mary. So we have a very strong, since the Quran is muhaymin, it does critique in very strong language the notion of Trinity, sonship, etc. And so this is a major difference with the Christians, not only the and about Prophet Musa alayhi salam, we of course accept and all the prophets of the children of Israel. And if a name is not mentioned in the Quran, we refrain from denying. Okay. And ultimately, they differ with us about whether Prophet Muhammad is a prophet or not. And sometimes, I said this in previous readings, that even personally, I have directly heard Christian theologians, when they speak about Prophet Muhammad, they speak about him as a prophet, and they would say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Some of them don't, some of them do. I know this might sound like a contradiction. How could they basically recognize his prophecy and his messengership and they don't change? That's what Muslims usually, would say, that if they accept, why they don't then become Muslims. And there are at least some Jewish theologians, rabbis, if you will, historically and now who accepted the prophecy of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they said that he was sent to the Arabs, for example, and that his message is not universal, so they don't have to follow it. So, after mentioning the name of God, I glorify Him with His praise, which should constitute the beginning of every book. May His blessings be upon His messengers, a prayer which should form the completion of every discourse. خاتمة كل خطاب. I then wished to rouse you from your sleep, O you who recite the Qur'an to a great length, who take its study as an occupation, and who imbibe some of its outward meanings and sentences. So the translation here that the Quran is a translation is an occupation. It might be simply as the studying as preoccupation, like rather than occupation, but it could be دراسة القرآن عملا. At least someone who is whose activity is centered around the Quran, who imbibe some of its outward meanings and sentences. How long will you ramble on the shore of the ocean? It's a blameworthy position not to enter into the ocean. How long will you ramble on the shore of the ocean, closing your eyes to the wonders of the meanings of the Quran? Was it not your duty to sail to the midst of the fathomless ocean of these meanings in order to see their wonders, to travel to their islands in order to gather their best produce, and to dive into their depths so that you might become rich by obtaining their jewels? Do you not feel ashamed of being deprived of their pearls and jewels by your persistence in looking at their shores and outward appearances? Now, on the use of jewels, I once was traveling and I was given a ride to the airport by one of my children, and I had bought many books, many, but I carried them with my hand, and it was our eldest son who suggested that I would put them in my suitcase because they were heavy. And I told him, do you put jewels in your suitcase? He said, are they jewels? I said, that's exactly what they are for me. I mean, I was worried if my suitcase is lost, and sometimes these things happen, I can buy, I can replace whatever is in the whatever is in the suitcase. So if you say, for example, if I had pants or shirts or whatever is one can replace them. But the books, that's really, so I use the word jewels in that context, and that's how you treat it. It reflects how you treat the and here it's about the Quran. It's not like, of course, the books of Imam Al-Ghazali, they include the Quran, they include the Hadith, the way he structured Ihya Ulumuddin, Quran, Hadith, Athar, but still, it's different when you deal with the Quran. And practically, you might say that what Imam Al-Ghazali is presenting in this book is a theory, okay, not far-fetched, okay, and in certain cases he's directly quoting the we mentioned 1500, 1505 jewels, if you will, and pairs total in both classifications. Do you not feel ashamed of being deprived of their pearls and jewels by your persistence in looking at their shores and outward appearances? You need to dive Has it not come to your knowledge that the Quran is like an ocean that is from the Quran, that the sciences of the ancients and the moderns branch off the contemporaries, and that's really relative. People soon become ancients, and those who are born today, for example, literally are going to be, inshallah, uh, the future scholars of the Quran. Just as rivers and brooks, ravines, just as rivers and brooks branch off from the shores of an ocean. Why do you not emulate those people who waded through their waves and thus gained red brimstone? Again, it's allegorical. Dived into their depths and thus drew out red corundum, shining pears and green chrysolite, traveled along their course and thus gathered grey ambergris and fresh blooming aloewood and became attached to their islands and thus derived from their animals and the greatest antidote and the strongest musk. Take notice that fulfilling the duty of Islamic brotherhood and hoping the blessing of your prayer to God, and hoping the blessing of your prayer to God, I know, I now, and I wish to guide you to the manner of the journey of these people, of their diving and their swimming. An explanation of the six aims of the Quran. This, inshallah, will will begin. In fact, there will be three essentials and three that augment them. This, inshallah, I will leave to the next session with Allah. Until then, subhanakallah wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.